Newport-Fersan in the Field. Real issues, real solutions is brought to you by Newport-Fersan Jamaica Limited, the first on the land.
All right, so it's now time for Fertilizer in the Field, real issues, real solutions. And this morning we're joined by Branatic Neufville, and Branatic is an agronomist with Newport-Fersan, Jamaica, and in fact, agronomist with Zone 1 to be exact. Branatic, good morning and welcome back to the show. How are you?
Good morning, listeners. I would say I'm doing fairly well, blessed and highly favored. I would say, to be more specific. How are you doing?
I am well, and I am very happy as always, Branatic, to engage you and the team, members of the team, in these kinds of conversations, because it helps our farmers to develop a better sense of what is happening on the ground. But outside of that, I'm also good, blessed and highly favored, right along with you.
Wonderful, wonderful.
All right, so Branatic, this morning we're looking at unlocking crop potential, how citric acid transforms water, fertilizer, and pesticide performance. Now, of course, it's always good for us to start with the basics. What is citric acid?
All right. Before we go into what citric acid is, Ms. Althea, let us look at some of the realities that we face on the farm before citric acid comes into play. Now,
Sure.
water, as we know, it's one of the most important factors in agriculture. Yet, it is often overlooked because the reality is that many farmers, they focus on seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, but water quality often gets neglected. Yet it touches almost every action on a farm. You're talking about from mixing your fertilizers and pesticides to irrigating your crops. But here's the reality: if the water quality is not ideal, then even the highest quality input will fail to achieve their full agronomic potential. Right? Now, the importance of optimal pH is well established, as we know, particularly regarding soil chemistry. So farmers have now recognized or understand, I should say, that when the soil pH falls outside of its optimal range, fertilizer efficiency is compromised. Alright? So what you tend to have is that your phosphorus becomes immobilized, calcium availability is reduced, and micronutrients either become deficient or toxic. However, many farmers underestimate that water pH operates under the same fundamental principles as soil pH. Water, as we know, is not merely a diluent, for agricultural input, Mr. Althea. Instead, it actively influences their chemical behavior. Now, just as how the soil pH governs nutrient availability within the soil, water pH dictates the efficacy of nutrients and agrochemicals, both in the spray solution and upon reaching the plant. Now, a practical way to understand this, Ms. Althea, is by thinking about a two-stroke engine. For example, a bush cutter, the same thing as what they call a weed whacker. Now, you can use the correct fuel, have a good spark plug, and a reliable machine. But if the carburetor is not tuned properly, the engine will not perform as it should. When that fuel air mixture is off, the engine may sputter, it may lose power, burn excessive fuel, or it fail altogether. The problem is not with the quality of the fuel or the machine itself. It's rather the operating conditions under which the fuel is being used. Now, crops, Mr. Althea, exhibit a similar sensitivity to water quality. Even when high quality fertilizers or effective pesticides are applied, once the water pH is unideal, then you can have nutrient uptake being limited, or you get a reduction in terms of the chemical efficacy, right? You will have the nutrients, they may be poorly absorbed, and the pesticides, they degrade or lose potency before they even reach the plant. Now, over time, what this does is that it results in the crop experiencing a diminished physiological response and also the need for repeated application, and this will also increases the production cost. Now, speaking of production costs, with the rising input costs and increasingly unpredictable climatic conditions, managing the water quality with citric acid is a critical management practice, right? As it protects the efficacy of the fertilizer, the pesticides, and irrigation, ensuring that agronomic investment translates to measurable crop performance. Therefore, Mr. Althea, optimizing the water quality, maximizing the efficacy of each application, which then supports the crop physiological resilience and stabilizes the yield outcome. Now, just as attentive management of soil pH is critical for achieving optimal crop performance, water pH demands equal consideration in modern farming system. Right? The water pH, it directly affects the behavior and the availability of nutrients and pesticides even before they reach the plant. This therefore makes its management an essential for maximizing the input efficiency and the crop outcomes, right? So from an agronomic standpoint, citric acid is primarily a water conditioner, a chelating agent, and an acidifying tool that is used to improve not only the nutrient efficiency but also the efficacy of your agrochemicals, which lead to greater system performance.
All right. So so citric acid is clearly a very important product in agriculture. As I understand it, it can be used for water softening, in the adjustment of the pH. You can use it in aquaculture and ponds. You can use it for cleaning and descaling. So there are so many different ways that you can employ citric acid on your farm, depending, of course, on the type of farm that you're having. And I'm very happy, Branatic, that we're bringing this to the table this morning. So what then are the negative implications for farmers when water pH is not measured, particularly in the absence of a water pH meter? Because we know that not every farmer has a water pH meter. So how do they know when they're having a challenge?
Excellent question, Ms. Althea. No, when the water pH is not measured, farmers lose control over one of the most influential yet least visible variables in crop production. Now, in the absence of a water pH meter, decisions are made without a clear understanding of how the water itself is interacting with fertilizers, pesticides, and irrigation systems. Now, this lack of measurement introduces inefficiencies at multiple levels of the production system. A practical way to understand this, Mr. Althea, is to think about mixing concrete. You can use good cement, quality aggregate, but if the mix is not prepared correctly, the final structure is weak and unreliable. Now, the problem is not the cement, it's the preparation. Now, in agriculture, water plays the same role in solution. If the water is not properly conditioned, even the best inputs cannot perform as intended. One of the most immediate consequences is the chemical instability of applied input, right? Whereas water with an unsuitable pH, it can alter the behavior of nutrients and pesticide active ingredients within a spray tank. What you find happening is that nutrient may become less available for uptake, while certain pesticides, as mentioned before, they begin to degrade even before they reach the plant surface. Now, another critical implication is the loss of application consistency and predictability, whereas water pH can fluctuate due to storage conditions and changes in water source. Without a pH meter, these shifts goes unnoticed, causing identical spray program to produce inconsistent crop responses. Now, there is also an economic impact to this as well, whereas when poor water quality reduces effectiveness, farmers often respond by increasing rate or repeating application. This increases the cost of input and labor while yields remain limited. Additionally, Mr. Althea, water pH that's not ideal contributes to chronic crop stress, whereas nutrient uptake becomes inefficient, physiological processes slow down, and crops become more vulnerable to pests and disease. Yield losses accumulate gradually, making the root cause harder to identify. So ultimately, failing to measure the water pH removes precision from the farming. And without that measurement, farmers may lose predictability, efficiency, and control. And these are three pillars, I should say, of profitable crop production.
Sounds to me then that we should be encouraging our farmers to invest in a pH meter, because of course that will help them to know exactly what is going on with their water. So walk us through now, Branatic, the ways in which water that is outside the ideal pH range can affect the efficacy of fertilizers.
Excellent. Now, suboptimal pH, Mr. Althea, and when we talk about suboptimal water pH, we're talking about that which falls outside of the ideal range, right? Now, it directly affects fertilizer effectiveness by altering nutrient chemistry at the point of application. Now, when fertilizers are mixed in water, they immediately enter a chemical environment that can either preserve nutrient availability or actively interfere with it, right? If water pH is outside the optimal range, nutrient behavior changes before the solution ever reaches the crop. In water that are too alkaline, many essential nutrients such as your iron, your manganese, your zinc, and your copper, they tend to precipitate into insoluble compounds. When this occurs, Mr. Althea, nutrient remains present in the tank, but are no longer biologically available to the plant, as there is a reduction in their bioavailability to the crops, right? Now, this is why farmers may apply the correct rate, yet the plant experiences deficiency because uptake is chemically restricted. Foliar fertilizers are especially sensitive, Mr. Althea, to water pH because nutrient uptake through the leaf surface depends on charge and solubility. When pH is unsuitable, nutrient penetration across the cuticle is reduced, and this slows down the correction of deficiency and weakening the crop response. This often leads to farmers misdiagnose the problem as poor product quality rather than poor water chemistry. Now, water pH that falls outside the ideal range, it also increases the likelihood of tank incompatibility, whereas precipitation, sediment formation, and uneven nutrient distribution can occur, and this results in blocked nozzles and inconsistent field coverage. These physical issues, Mr. Althea, they further reduces the application accuracy and nutrient delivery. Now, from an agronomic perspective, the cumulative effect is reduced efficiency, where you have fertilizer inputs delivering less return, crop performance become inconsistent, and production cost increases as farmers attempt to compensate through additional application. Now, in modern crop production, where fertilizer efficiency and precision are critical, managing the water pH is essential, right? Correcting water pH ensures nutrients remain soluble, stable, and physiologically available, allowing the crops, allowing the fertilizers rather to perform according to their design and maximizing returns on every application.
So therefore, Branatic, we have to ensure that we're getting that equation right. And when we come back from the break, we'll pick up on that.
Farmers, this one is for you. Want to get rid of all those pesky insects, thrips, aphids, armyworms, spider mites, leaf miners, diamondback moth, and many more? Spectra Insecticide and Miticide from Newport-Fersan is for you. Spectra is safe, effective, and is approved and registered for the use of melon, cucumber, pumpkin, cabbage, lettuce, broccoli, peppers, onions, tomatoes, potatoes, and peas. Spectra is compatible with most pesticides. Spectra available in farm stores. For a full list of crops and pests, please visit www.newportfersanja.com. Newport-Fersan, first on the land.
All right, so we're inside the feature, First and in the Field, Real Issues, Real Solutions. Today we're taking a look at unlocking crop potential, how citric acid transforms water, fertilizer, and pesticide performance. And before the break, Branatic Neufville was talking to us about the issues that can occur if we don't get that pH balance right, and how it is that this whole issue of the pH balance or lack thereof can impact the efficacy of the fertilizer that is applied. So it's all about finding the right equation. Now, Branatic, over time, many farmers notice that their drip irrigation systems lose efficiency as well due to clogging and uneven water delivery. What causes drip lines to become clogged, and how does this problem affect irrigation performance and crop productivity? Is there any correlation with the pH balance as well?
Okay. Now, drip lines, they become clogged over time because water is rarely just plain water, right? Even when it looks clean, it carries dissolved minerals, fine sediments, and biological materials. Now, as water moves through the drip lines day after day, minerals such as your calcium, your magnesium, and your carbonates, they can gradually precipitate and form hard deposits along the inner walls of the tubing and inside the emitters. Now, this clogging, it directly compromises irrigation performance. So instead of delivering water uniformly across the field, some plants receive less water while others receive more. Now, remember, drip irrigation is designed to be precise, but once emitters are partially blocked, that precision is lost. The result is uneven soil moisture, where a section of the root zone experience water stress while areas remain overly wet. Now, plants under water stress reduce root activity, nutrient uptake, and photosynthesis, even if fertilizers are present in the soil. In many cases, when farmers observe uneven crop growth or signs of moisture stress, the first response is to increase irrigation duration or frequency. More commonly, what farmers tend to do is that they may decide to replace the entire drip line, believing the system has reached the end of its lifespan. Now, while this seems like a practical solution, it significantly increases production costs. From an agronomic and an economic standpoint, Mr. Althea, this system is completely inefficient and ultimately reduces the overall farm profitability.
And so the farmers have to be not just au fait with, but develop an understanding of how it is that they can move in the space efficiently through the use of the proper techniques and equipment as well. All right, so then, Branatic, that leads to the question of the solution. What is the solution for farmers who are currently operating without a water pH meter?
Now, the most practical and foundational solution is investing in a reliable water pH meter, because it brings precision and certainty into everyday farm operations. Once a farmer can measure water pH accurately, guesswork is completely removed from spraying and irrigation practices. So instead of assuming that the water source is good enough simply because it looks clean, the farmer can verify its condition and make informed decisions before any fertilizer, pesticide, or nutrient product is mixed. This single step method here prevents many of the hidden problems that quietly reduce product performance in the field. A water pH meter also empowers farmers to standardize their application across time and across crops. Whether the spray is being prepared today, next week, or later in the season, the farmer can work from a known starting point rather than relying on assumptions. Now, this consistency is especially important when using products that require a specific pH range to remain stable and effective. So, by starting with or by investing in a water pH meter, farmers can create the same conditions every time, which leads to a more predictable and repeatable result where yield is concerned.
The use of the pH meter is what you recommend, but of course, if they don't have that pH meter, then I would imagine that this is where the citric acid is going to come in. Tell us more about this Branatic, because we know that there are many farmers across the length and breadth of the island who sometimes they tend to want to do things traditionally.
All right, Mr. Alzey, the reality is that we have to shift away from this traditional type of farming. Hence the reason why the pH meter becomes practical and foundational. In fact, it is not just it should not be optional, I should say, right? Because as you know, when you have that pH meter, you can now begin your operation as I mentioned from a known starting point. So what we are doing is that you're eliminating the guesswork, and you are also improving product efficacy, fertilizer efficacy, etc.
Very, very important information being shared here. And I want to encourage our farmers to focus on the issues that we put on the table, because we do so in order to try to help our farmers to not just better understand the issues, but to give them practical solutions. So we have been talking about the use of citric acid, issue of performance on the field in terms of the efficacy of the fertilizers that are being applied, and you have to have that pH balance correct. Yes, Branatic, we're back with you.
Excellent. Oh, come on. Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yes. All right. So your preference clearly as an agronomist is for the farmer to have the pH meter. That would be the ideal situation. But you're saying that if the farmer does not have a pH meter, then they can go ahead and focus on the use of citric acid on the farm. Now, from your experience as an agronomist, when they use a citric acid, what kinds of changes do they experience?
All right, so citric acid can be used to correct the water pH balance. So let's talk about it first from enhancing the fertilizer effective application. Now, once the pH meter is known, right? Once the pH, I should say, the water pH is known, the citric acid, it becomes an extremely practical and effective solution for correcting the unsuitable pH, especially when the water tends to be too alkaline, right? So by conditioning the water before adding the fertilizer, the citric acid adjusts the solution to a pH where nutrients remain chemically stable and less likely to degrade or react with other minerals, right? Now this is critical because high quality fertilizers can lose effectiveness if the water chemistry is not suitable, which can lead to weak crop response or inconsistent growth. Now, it is also important, you see, this is why the pH meter is important now, because it is important to test the water pH after adding your fertilizers. Again, as certain fertilizers have the potential to alter the pH of the solution. Therefore, that retesting ensures that the water remains within the range where nutrients are accessible, stable, and thus allowing the farmers to take corrective actions if necessary. Now, apart from conditioning water or adjusting water pH, citric acid also acts as a chelating agent for farmers where fertilizer effectiveness is concerned, meaning it binds to nutrients such as your calcium, your magnesium, your iron, your zinc, etc. Now, this binding helps to reduce the risk of nutrients being lost through leaching or reacting with other elements in the water that could make them unavailable. Therefore, by keeping those nutrients within the plant accessible form, citric acid enhances their uptake and ensures that the plant can absorb them efficiently. Right? Now, the practical benefits for farmers are significant. When the fertilizers are applied in properly conditioned water, plants respond faster, deficiency symptoms are corrected more effectively, and overall crop health improves. Right? Now, the crops will then show stronger growth, better uniformity, and higher vigor without the need to increase the amount of fertilizer applied.
Now, clearly there's a correlation between the two things that you have spoken about this morning, use of the pH meter and the citric acid, which really is the agent that is now going to provide that balance that you need. The farmer now recognizes that needs to be there once they have used the pH meter to identify same. So that is what is going on. I have a question here for you. Says, good morning, please ask your guest where we can get the meter to buy, and they want to know if you know the cost.
Well, they can reach out to Newport-Fersan and get the cost. But our farm stores, and we at Newport-Fersan, supply both the pH meter and the citric acid. You can check your local farm store where the price is concerned. You can check with your local farm store or call the office, and we can provide you with the cost.
All right, excellent, because then that means that there is no reason the farmer should be saying that I can't access the pH meter, because you have it there at Newport-Fersan, and of course the farm stores across the length and breadth of the island sell pH meters. So that is certainly good information that is being shared there. And from your experience, Branatic, are we seeing enough use of the pH meters on farms? I don't know what is the phone gremlins. All right, we're on the break, so let us just clear that, and by the time we come back, we should have Branatic back with us. All right, so we're rounding out our conversation now with Branatic Neufville, agronomist for Zone 1 with Newport-Fersan, and we've been talking about the use of the pH meter and the use of citric acid to arrive at that balanced, or, well, I suppose it depends on balance will come depending on whether the water is alkaline or not. And so the use of the pH meter and the citric acid to make the corrections really is very, very important, because you have to have the water at a particular level in order to achieve the efficacy in terms of the use of the fertilizers. All right, so let us see if we can hear you again, Branatic. Branatic?
Yeah.
All right, so we just want to make sure that I hope we don't lose you again before we come to the end of the program. What I will ask you to do then, just to be on the safe side, is to just reiterate some of what you have shared with us this morning.
All right. So yes, we talk about the use of the pH meter to start from a known point, right? So that farmers can make informed decisions. Not only that, we talk about the use of the citric acid and how it has become extremely practical and effective for correcting unsuitable pH for your fertilizers. Not only for your fertilizers, but an important point that I want to make is that a lot of times farmers tend to see reduced efficacy where pesticide application is concerned, right? Now, the first thing that farmers tend to do is either they increase the dosage rate, or they repeat the application, or the product is labeled as poor quality. However, the first and the most important step in ensuring that the pesticides perform effectively is to measure the water pH, which again illustrates or re-emphasize that we first have to know the water pH, and this therefore solidifies the fact that the water pH is not optional but rather foundational, right? So using the citric acid where pesticide is concerned helps to adjust the water pH and therefore stabilize sensitive compounds, making the pesticide more reliable, right? It allows the active ingredients to remain active long enough to be absorbed or come in contact with the pest, the weeds, which are the targets which are intended for, which lead to a more consistent control. Now, this results in fewer field application and reduced input waste. This then lowers production costs and also
right. Unfortunately, we have lost Branatic again, and I don't know that we're going to get him back. But importantly, Branatic has shared with us it's important to have a pH meter. He says make sure that you're able to measure, to get a sense of what the pH balance is in your water before you go off and use it, because that will make a difference in terms of how the crops perform and whether or not you have a positive overall outcome. So that is critical. He talks about the use of citric acid to achieve the balance that you're looking for, noting that the consequences of applying pesticides with water that does not have an ideal pH, for example, can have a deleterious effect on the crops that you're growing, and so you need to be aware of that. We want to suggest to you that you engage your Newport-Fersan rep in conversation and try to find out how it is that you can have a system that better assists you overall to have the kinds of outcomes that you're looking for. All farmers go into this business to make money. They don't go into it. If you're a serious farmer, then that is what you're doing. If you're a backyard gardener, you're just doing it because you want to watch the plants grow and to have a little bit of extra food that you have produced yourself. But if you're growing crops that are going to meet the needs, the nutritional needs of society, then you have to be focused on some of these issues. And I'm very happy that Branatic was able to share how it is that you can use citric acid to transform water, fertilizer, and pesticide performance this morning. All right, so just want to let you know that we do have a lot that is going on, and lots of information to share. As always on the program, we're going to try to see if we could get him back. All right, so let us see if we have him back. Branatic? All right, we're not getting him back. Not getting him back. All right, so we do apologize for that. But there will be other occasions on which we can speak with him about this very, very important issue. Let's just take the announcement from our sponsors, and then we are heading to the end of the show.
Fersan in the Field, Real Issues, Real Solutions was brought to you by Newport-Fersan Jamaica Limited, the first on the land.